They said human eyes were weak and fragile and not made for war in the dark, and alien voices echoed with laughter when they spoke about it. And they claimed humans could never stand in places without light, and they said humans were creatures of the sun and the flame, and nothing more than blind animals when shadows grew long and when the stars hid their shine. Across the galaxy, it became a joke that humans were half blind when the night arrived, and even the youngest alien child knew the story, and they would say, look at them, they squint and stumble when light is gone, and they fear the black around them, and their fragile eyes are weak like glass and fragile like crystal, and never meant for the endless dark. Alien commanders repeated the same words in war meetings, and they told their soldiers that if you want to win against humans, fight them when the sun goes down. And they said, do not worry. They cannot see, they cannot fight, and they cannot survive when no light remains. And alien leaders smiled with cold teeth, believing this was true, and they thought darkness itself was their ally against humankind. But humans listened in silence, and they never answered these insults with words, and they carried the insult in their hearts like a hidden fire. And they whispered to each other, one day, we will show them the truth, and one day they will learn that night is not their ally, and one day they will see that shadows do not protect them, but destroy them, and humans trained in silence, waiting for that day to come. The first sign of the plan was quiet and secret, and not even most humans knew of it, and only the strongest soldiers were chosen, and only the most patient were trained, and they were taken to places where light was gone for weeks, and they were forced to walk in caves and forests where nothing could be seen, and they learned to breathe slowly and to listen to every sound, and they learned to move without noise and to fight with their hands and blades in silence and in the black. The aliens kept saying that humans were weak, and they never noticed that humans were changing and evolving, and the joke spread further, and alien traders told the tale in their markets, and alien captains laughed in their ships, and alien generals mocked in their speeches, and they thought they knew the truth of human weakness, but they were wrong, and the truth was being forged in silence in hidden training grounds where no star or moon gave light. The galaxy believed in the myth, and it became something larger than fact and larger than reason, and soon even humans outside the secret training began to wonder if maybe it was true, and maybe their eyes were weak, and maybe darkness was a curse against them, and some humans feared the black more than ever before and hid from it and never walked outside when night fell, and this fear gave more fuel to the alien mockery, and the myth became stronger than steel. But in the hidden bases where chosen humans trained, the truth was sharper than any myth, and in that truth the soldiers discovered something old and ancient, and they discovered that humans had always hunted in the dark before fire was born, before cities rose, before technology existed, and they remembered that their ancestors stalked prey under moonlight and listened to the wind and tracked footsteps in silence, and they remembered that humans were always predators of the night and not prey. The chosen soldiers embraced this truth and trained harder, and they learned to slow their breathing until they were shadows, and they learned to listen until they could hear the smallest movement and the smallest heartbeat, and they learned to smell the air and know if an enemy was near, and they learned to fight blindfolded for hours until the dark was no longer fear but friend, and the silence was no longer empty but alive with signals. The aliens kept their laughter and their careless arrogance, and they spoke of a new war and a new conquest, and they believed victory was certain because humans could not fight in total darkness, and their scanners and sensors would guide them, and their eyes could see what human eyes could not, and they thought this was enough to win every battle in shadow. What they did not know was that the humans had chosen the battlefield already, and it would not be a world of light or warmth, but a world of endless night and endless silence, and humans prepared to invite the aliens there, and to let them believe in their lie until it was too late and until the hunt began. Whispers spread among the human soldiers chosen for the mission, and they spoke no fear and only patience. And they said, let the aliens come, let them laugh, as they always do, let them believe the same lie again and again, and when they arrive, we will teach them that night belongs to us, and we will teach them that the dark is not their ally, but our weapon, and when the war begins in shadow, it will end in shadow, and their screams will echo louder than their laughter ever did. And so the stage was set, and the galaxy did not know it, and the aliens did not see it, and the humans did not speak of it, but in silence they waited, and they prepared their gear and their weapons and their hearts, and in silence they trained in the black until no fear was left and only sharp patience remained. The aliens believed humans were blind at night, but in truth the humans were waiting for night to fall forever, and only then would the galaxy see what human eyes could do when light was gone and what human hunters could do when shadows ruled the land. The alien fleets gathered in silence above the black world, and they watched the surface below covered in endless night, and they felt only triumph and pride in their hearts, and they whispered to each other that this battle would be easy and quick, and they said humans could not see in such darkness, and they said the world itself would fight against human eyes and human weakness, and they laughed in their ships with bright voices that echoed in steel halls. Their commanders stood tall in war chambers with glowing maps, and they pointed at the surface with claws and hands, and they said this is where humans will fall, and this is where they will crawl like blind worms, and this is where the myth becomes reality before all armies, and they believe their words like law, and they smiled with cruel certainty, and their soldiers bowed and shouted victory before the battle even began. The alien generals remembered all stories told in their academies, and every lesson was the same, and every teacher said humans cannot fight in shadow, and cannot survive without sun, and cannot stand in the endless black, and the soldiers had grown up believing this like they believe in the air they breathed, and none of them questioned it, and none of them wondered if there was truth beyond the tale, because to them it was already truth stronger than any evidence. When their ships broke through the clouds and touched the ground of the dark world, they carried lights that cut the black, and their machines scanned in every direction, and their helmets glowed with artificial vision, and they believed they were masters of the night, and nothing could hide from them. And they stepped forward with heavy boots and loud voices telling each other that humans would soon be captured like prey, cornered in caves. The alien soldiers walked in groups with weapons raised, and they felt no fear and no tension and no caution because they believed the darkness was their shield and their weapon, and they shouted jokes about humans stumbling into rocks and falling into holes. And they said when the humans arrive, they will be blind like children and easy to strike down, and their commanders encouraged them to keep their pride and their arrogance, for they believed pride was already victory. But deep in the black, where their lights could not reach, there was silence and patience waiting for them. And they did not see it yet, and they did not sense it yet, and they believed the night was empty and safe, and theirs alone, and every step they took was filled with carelessness, and every breath they took was heavy with false comfort. The alien fleet had prepared machines that scanned for heat and for movement, and they believed no creature could escape such eyes, and they said if humans try to hide, we will see their warm blood through the trees, and if humans try to move, we will hear their steps through the ground, and they trusted their tools more than their own instincts, and they trusted the night to be their ally, and not their enemy. The commanders walked through the ranks with banners shining with false light, and they told the soldiers, remember the weakness of human eyes, remember the fragility of their sight, remember the truth we were taught since youth, and tonight you will see them fall, you will see them break, and you will see them crawl, and when the dawn comes, if it ever comes, you will stand victorious over their broken bodies. The aliens spread across the land like waves of steel and fire, and their voices echoed through the empty valleys, and their machines roared, and their scanners hummed, and their beams of light cut through the black, but they did not see the truth waiting in silence, and they did not hear the quiet breaths of human hunters watching from the shadows, and they did not know that every careless step they took was already being counted by patient eyes and patient ears. The alien leaders sat in their command stations and shared drinks and smiles, and they said this is the easiest war we have ever fought, and this is not even war but slaughter, and they said by tomorrow we will send the story across the galaxy that humans are broken and weak, and that no one should ever fear them, and they believed their future was already written in gold. Yet in the silence outside their walls the humans moved without sound, and they watched the arrogant invaders with calm eyes that did not need light anymore, and they breathed the night like air, and they felt the ground like water, and they smiled without words because everything was happening as they planned, and everything was unfolding as they trained for, and the night that was supposed to belong to the aliens was already bending to the humans who had claimed it in secret. Long ago, the alien patrols marched without caution, and every group felt safe because they believed the myth, and they trusted their leaders, and they trusted their tools, and they trusted their scanners, and they thought no danger could hide in the black, But the black itself was alive, and the hunters of Earth were already within it, and every moment brought them closer and closer to the truth. The night grew heavier and colder, and still the aliens laughed, and still they marched with lights, and still they told stories of weak human eyes and fragile human hearts. And they said this battle is a gift from the stars, a simple conquest that will prove our strength once more. But they did not know that the gift belonged to the humans, and the trap had already closed, and every sound of their laughter would soon be replaced by screams. And in that moment, when silence pressed closer than their lights, and when shadows began to move in places they could not scan, the first taste of fear began to grow in their hearts, though they did not admit it, and they did not speak of it. And they tried to drown it with louder voices and brighter lights. But fear was already there, small, but sharp, and waiting to grow like fire in dry grass. The aliens had entered the dark world with arrogance and with confidence, and they believed victory was theirs already, but in truth the night was not theirs, and never had been, and the humans were waiting with patience and hunger, and the real war was about to begin. The humans came without warning and without sound, and they stepped onto the dark world like shadows given shape, and the aliens did not see them at first because the humans carried no light and no beacon and no sign of their landing, and they moved across the black ground with careful steps and careful breaths, and the night seemed to bend around them, as if the darkness itself obeyed their will. The alien scouts searched with bright beams and glowing eyes, but the beams fell empty on rocks and trees, and nothing moved where they looked, and the commander said, "See, there are no humans here, and they are too weak to face us in the dark, and they are too afraid to step into this endless shadow, and they celebrated too early while their prey had already entered the hunt unseen." The humans wore armor darker than the black sky, and they painted their bodies with silent ash, and they carried weapons made for silence, and they moved as groups and never alone, and each one felt the breath of the other, and each one listened for the faintest sound of boots or claws in the distance, and their ears replaced their eyes, and their instincts replaced their fear, but they became the predators that the aliens never believed existed. The ground was soft and cold under their steps, and the air was heavy with the smell of machines and fuel from alien camps, and every human soldier felt it, and remembered the training in caves and forests and oceans where no sun touched their skin, and every step was slow and patient, and guided by memory, not by sight, and they advanced like shadows, growing long and endless. The aliens joked among themselves, and they spoke loudly in their camps, and they said humans are blind and helpless, and if they are here, they are already crawling on the ground like lost animals. And the soldiers laughed, and the officers repeated the same lie that had carried them across the galaxy. But none of them noticed that in the silence between their laughter a new presence had entered, and that presence listened with hungry patience. The humans spread wide across the land, and they used no light and no sound, and their commanders whispered orders with signals of hands and signals of touch. And the squads obeyed without hesitation, and they circled the alien patrols like wolves surrounding larger prey, and they did not strike yet, because the moment was not ready, and the night was still their ally, and patience was their greatest weapon. In the black fields, the aliens raised scanners again, and they saw no trace of the enemy, and their leaders told them to relax and wait, and let the humans come to them. And they said humans cannot live long in this darkness, and soon they will stumble and fall, and soon we will find them crying for light. But still they did not know that humans were already near, breathing the same air and watching from the same shadows. The first whisper of fear touched the aliens when one of them thought he saw movement between the rocks, and he raised his weapon and fired, and the others laughed at him, and said, "You see ghosts where there are none, and you hear echoes of your own fear." And he tried to laugh with them, but his hands shook and his voice cracked, and in his heart he knew something had been there, and something had moved faster than his eyes could follow. The humans closed their circle tighter and tighter, and they moved without rush and without mistake, and every step was chosen with care, and every pause was held with purpose, and the aliens continued their careless march, believing no danger was near, and believing their scanners more than their senses, and they walked deeper into the black world while the hunters closed behind them like the jaws of an unseen beast. In the silence of the valleys, the humans crouched low, and their breath slowed until no sound escaped, and they placed their hands on the earth, and felt the tremors of alien boots, and they counted the numbers, and they mapped the distance in their minds, and they waited for the signal that would bring the hunt to life, and their eyes that the galaxy called weak glowed with cold purpose, though no alien could see them. The commanders of the alien patrols raised their voices higher, and they said this mission is simple, and soon we will drag the humans from the caves where they hide, and soon we will bring them to our masters as trophies of weakness. But even as they spoke, the trees around them held shadows that listened, and even as they laughed, the air carried the breath of human hunters who had already chosen their targets and their order of attack. The humans whispered, no words, for silence was their shield, and their language was touch and gesture, and the hunters signaled with fingers and with eyes, and the squads shifted like flowing water across the ground, and every shadow they touched swallowed them whole, and every sound they left behind was only the echo of the alien machines far away. The aliens thought themselves kings of the dark world, but the night was never theirs, and the first cracks in their pride were already forming, though they did not yet know it. And though they spoke of victory, their hearts would soon learn of fear and of helplessness in the face of enemies who had embraced the black more deeply than any machine or scanner could ever reach. The humans crouched closer and closer until the distance between hunter and prey was nothing but a single breath, and still the aliens saw nothing, and still they joked and laughed and mocked, and told themselves the old lie of weak eyes and fragile hearts and blind soldiers, but the truth was waiting to strike, and the silence was heavy with the weight of what was about to begin. And in that final moment before the first hunt began, the dark world belonged to humans already, and the aliens who had walked into it so boldly had no idea that their victory had ended the moment their boots touched the ground, and the night was no longer safe, and no longer empty, and no longer theirs, because the humans had come and the hunt was ready to begin. The silence of the dark world grew heavier as the alien patrols marched with careless steps, and their lights shone wide, but showed nothing, and their scanners hummed, but revealed nothing, and their voices echoed with pride, but carried no truth, and around them unseen and unheard the humans waited with steady patience and calm hearts, ready to turn the night into their weapon. The first strike came without warning, and it came without sound, and an alien soldier at the edge of the formation felt a sudden grip in the black, and then nothing more, and his voice never rose to cry out, and his weapon fell without noise, and the rest of the patrol walked on, believing him still behind them, though his body was already gone, swallowed by the shadows that the humans ruled. Another soldier heard a faint rustle, and he turned with wide eyes, and raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the dark itself seemed to move, and a cold hand silenced him, and dragged him into the black, and the others marched forward laughing at their own jokes, never seeing that their numbers were shrinking one by one, and the night was eating them alive. The commanders noticed only when the patrol ahead failed to answer their signal, and they shouted into the comms with sharp voices demanding a response, but the comms answered with silence and broken static, and the commanders grew angry, believing it was a fault of equipment, and they told the soldiers to stay sharp, but still they did not believe danger was near, and still they thought humans could never strike in such a place. The humans moved like shadows of the wind, and they slid between rocks and trees faster than the alien eyes could follow, and they struck with blades and with silent tools, and they vanished again before any alarm could rise, and the aliens fired blindly into the dark, wasting shots that cut only air and stone, and their panic grew, though their voices tried to hide it with false strength. The ground soon became a graveyard of echoes where screams began to replace laughter and shadows began to replace certainty, and the aliens looked around with wide eyes shining under their helmets. And they said, "Where are they, and how can they be here, and why do we not see them?" And each voice was heavy with fear, though each soldier tried to keep pride alive. The humans whispered no words as they hunted, and their silence was the sharpest blade, and their patience was the strongest armor, and they knew every step of the alien patrol before it was taken, and they knew every fear that grew inside their enemies, and they used that fear to press harder until the aliens broke in mind before they broke in body. One alien squad gathered together in panic and raised their lights high and fired in every direction, but the blacks swallowed their beams, and their shots found nothing, and then one of them was gone, pulled into the trees, and then another fell with a muffled cry, and the others screamed and fired again, but hit nothing but their own shadows, and the humans melted back, leaving only silence to crush what courage was left. The commanders shouted louder from their stations, demanding order and control, and they told their soldiers to stop panicking and to regroup, and they promised that scanners would find the enemy soon. But the scanners were blind, and the machines that the aliens trusted so much gave only empty readings and lies, and the humans moved too fast and too silent for such machines to catch. The fear grew faster than the orders could control, and alien soldiers began to break formation, and some ran into the black, hoping to escape. But running only made them easier prey, and they vanished into silence with each step until nothing remained but the sound of boots falling and then stopping forever, and their weapons fell unheard into the dark earth. The humans tightened their circle and struck harder now, and their blades were quick and their movements precise, and the aliens who once mocked weak human eyes now stared wide in the night, begging for sight that would never save them, and they fired until their weapons overheated, and then they cried out into the comms for help that would never come. The alien commanders cursed their soldiers and cursed the darkness and cursed the humans, but their own hearts shook with fear, and though they shouted for order, their eyes looked to every shadow and every sound as if death waited there. And in truth it did, and the humans were closer than they knew and listening to every word with cold patience. The black world echoed now with the sound of breaking voices and broken pride, and the humans advanced like a tide, unseen and unstoppable, and every strike was a lesson, and every silence was a warning, and the aliens learned too late that they were no longer hunters, but prey, and the night no longer served them, but betrayed them. One by one patrols vanished, and camps fell silent, and outposts stopped answering, and the commanders realized their armies were being cut apart without battle lines, and without warning, and they had no weapon against it, because they never trained for silence, and they never trained for patience, and they never trained for the dark that humans now ruled. The fear turned to chaos, and chaos turned to collapse, and alien soldiers fired on each other in panic and mistook shadows for enemies and mistook echoes for footsteps, and their pride was shattered with each mistake, and the humans used the panic like fire spreading through dry grass, and they struck faster now and vanished quicker now, and the aliens fell deeper into terror with every breath. The first hunt was not a battle, it was not a fight, it was a lesson, and the humans taught it without words and without mercy, and the lesson was written in silence and in blood and in the black ground of a world that now belonged to them, and the aliens who entered with arrogance left with fear carved into their souls and whispers carved into their minds. And as the last patrols collapsed and the last screams faded into the endless night, the truth became clear to those who still breathed, and that truth was that humans were not blind and not weak and not helpless in darkness, and the night did not belong to the aliens and never had it belonged to the humans who claimed it with every strike and every whisper and every silence, and the hunt had only just begun. The aliens thought they knew the weakness of human eyes, and they believed it without question and without doubt, and they carried this belief across the stars, as if it were law written in fire and stone. Yet in the endless night of the dark world, that belief began to die, and the truth began to rise like a shadow heavier than fear and sharper than steel. The humans had never spoken back when the aliens mocked them, and they never argued when the galaxy laughed at their fragile eyes, for silence was their shield and patience was their weapon, and all the while they prepared and trained and sharpened themselves in secret until the day came when the myth would break and the truth would be revealed in the black of night. Every human soldier who walked that world carried not only weapons of steel, but also the memory of ancestors who hunted under moonlight and who stalked prey before fire was ever born, and they carried the instinct of predators who had always lived between shadow and silence, and in the dark they remembered who they truly were and what they truly carried in their blood. The aliens had believed that technology was the only way to rule darkness, and they trusted scanners and lights and machines more than their own senses, yet the humans trusted nothing but themselves, and they sharpened every sense until hearing became sight, and smell became direction, and instinct became command, and in this way they walked through the night, as if it were not enemy, but ally. The truth of human eyes was not that they were weak, but that they were never alone, for the eyes worked with the ears, and the ears worked with the skin, and the whole body became a tool of survival, and the whole mind became a weapon of patience, and the humans used all of it in silence and in unity, and this made them stronger than any scanner that the aliens carried in their hands. As the hunt continued, the aliens saw shadows moving where their scanners showed nothing, and they fired wildly into black, empty fields, and they screamed that humans were ghosts and demons and impossible hunters. Yet the truth was simple: the humans were only men and women who had trained beyond fear and had turned every weakness into strength and every insult into fuel for their resolve. The alien commanders shouted that humans had tricked them with some secret device, but no machine guided the humans, and no tool gave them power. It was only the old strength that had always lived inside them, and that strength was now revealed like a blade drawn in silence from its sheath, and the blade cut, without mercy, through the proud armies of the night. One human squad surrounded an alien camp, and they moved as quiet as breath and as patient as stone, and they struck from every side at once, and the aliens fired in panic, but hit nothing, and the humans vanished again into the black, leaving only the echo of screams and the emptiness of fear, and the aliens began to whisper among themselves that the night was cursed and that humans had become part of it. The truth of human eyes was whispered in every dark valley and every ruined outpost, as survivors stumbled back with voices shaking, saying they see without seeing, and they move without light, and they hunt without sound, and nothing can escape them. And soon this whisper grew louder than the old lie, and it spread through the alien ranks like poison, eating their courage and shattering their pride. The humans revealed not only skill but unity, for they moved as one mind and one body, and their commanders gave signals with nothing but hands and nothing but silence, and every soldier obeyed with perfect trust, and this unity made them unstoppable, for the aliens were loud and broken and full of panic, while the humans were silent and whole and full of purpose, and the difference was greater than any weapon. The black world itself seemed to bend to human will, as if the night had been waiting for them all along, and the aliens began to realize too late that they had walked into a trap not made of machines or tricks, but made of patience and made of truth, and the truth was that the night belonged not to them, but to the humans who had always known how to survive it. Every strike carried the weight of the insult that the galaxy had spoken for years, and every whisper of movement carried the memory of mockery turned into fire, and every silent step was a promise kept that one day the truth would be revealed, and now it was revealed with blood and with fear and with screams that no scanner could erase. The alien generals tried to gather their soldiers and tried to speak with strength, but their words trembled, and their soldiers looked at them with wide eyes filled with doubt, and no order could erase what they had seen, and no command could silence what they had heard, and the truth was stronger than their discipline and stronger than their pride, and it broke them from inside. The humans pressed forward without hesitation, and every victory was silent, and every strike was precise, and the aliens fell again and again until they no longer saw the humans as blind, but saw them as hunters beyond understanding, and many dropped their weapons and fled into the black only to vanish into silence like all the others before them. And so the truth spread across the battlefield faster than fire and sharper than steel, the truth that humans were not blind and not weak and not helpless in darkness, the truth that humans had taken the black and claimed it as their ally and turned it against those who thought it would protect them. And in this truth the night itself changed and belonged to humans alone. The galaxy had laughed at human eyes, but now the galaxy would remember them with fear, and now the story was no longer one of weakness, but of strength, and now every shadow whispered of danger, and every night sky carried the memory of hunters who moved unseen and who struck without mercy, and the aliens who survived would never forget the lesson carved into their hearts. The truth of human eyes was not light or vision or weakness. It was survival. It was instinct. It was patience and unity and silence. And in the dark world where the hunt raged, this truth was revealed in full, and those who lived through it carried the memory forever and spread it across the stars. And as the humans stood in the silence of victory with the night wrapped around them like armor, they knew the lesson had been taught, and they knew the galaxy would never mock them again, for the truth was out and the night belonged to them now and always. The night pressed heavier on the alien armies, And though their machines still hummed and their lights still shone, there was no courage left inside their hearts. And every soldier looked into the black, expecting to see hunters waiting, and every sound became a threat, and every shadow became an enemy, and fear spread like a sickness that no order could cure. The commanders shouted louder, and they struck their fists against metal tables, and they called their soldiers cowards and fools, but their own eyes wandered too, and their own voices trembled though they tried to hide it, and the truth was stronger than their pride, and the soldiers heard it in every false command, and in every hollow promise that victory was still possible. The humans did not rush, and they did not stumble, and they did not fall into pride, for they had trained too long and too hard for that. And they moved in silence with patience that never broke, and they struck where fear was strongest, and where doubt was already spreading, and every strike shattered another piece of the alien ranks, until chaos became stronger than discipline. Alien patrols tried to regroup in circles with lights raised high, but the beams showed nothing but the empty black, and then the humans moved again, cutting into them with speed and vanishing before they could fire. And the circles broke apart with screams and panic, and weapons fell from shaking hands as soldiers fled into the night. The commanders ordered their fleets to land more soldiers, and they said more numbers will crush the humans, but numbers meant nothing in the dark, because fear grew faster in larger crowds, and the screams of many carried farther than the screams of few, and the humans knew how to use it, and they struck again and again, spreading terror wider with every attack. The aliens began to shoot at shadows, and they began to fire at each other in panic, and the black echoed with the sound of weapons wasted and lives wasted, and the commanders begged for order, but order no longer lived in their soldiers, because fear had already claimed them and doubt had already broken them, and the humans only pressed harder. One alien officer shouted that they must hold their ground, and he raised his weapon to inspire courage, but before his words were finished he fell silent as a human blade cut through the black, and his soldiers saw it, and their courage died with him, and they scattered into the dark like prey fleeing the hunter that they could not see. The humans used the fear like a tide, rising higher and stronger, and they drove the aliens back step by step without ever rushing and without ever showing mercy, and every shadow carried death, and every silence carried threat, and the aliens realized too late that the night itself was against them, and nothing they did could change it. Machines that once gave them confidence now betrayed them, as scanners gave only empty readings, and helmets flashed with false warnings, and lights blinded their own eyes more than they revealed the world around them, and the humans moved faster than the machines could follow, and struck in places where the technology could not reach, and this broke the last trust the aliens had in their tools. The commanders gathered in secret chambers and whispered that the war was turning and that victory was slipping away, and they asked each other, how could this happen, and how could humans who were called blind fight better in darkness than those who could see? And they found no answer except fear and shame, and their silence told them the truth they did not want to admit. The humans pressed deeper into alien lines, and they tore apart camps, and they silenced patrols, and they left behind only the memory of screams and the echo of footsteps that faded before they could be caught. And every time the aliens thought they had cornered the enemy, the humans were already behind them, already above them, already inside the black they thought was safe. Fear turned to despair, and despair turned to collapse, and alien soldiers began to abandon their posts and run to ships waiting above. But even in the skies there was no comfort, because the black world below whispered in their minds, and the memory of hunters chasing them stayed with every breath, and no escape felt true, and no safety felt real. The humans moved as one body and one purpose, and they struck not for chaos, but for control, and every action was chosen, and every silence was planned, and they carved the alien armies apart piece by piece, until the strength of numbers meant nothing, and until the pride of command meant nothing, and until the night belonged to them alone. The turning point came not with one strike, but with many small cuts, until the alien army bled without knowing, and then the moment arrived when no soldier obeyed orders, and no commander believed in victory, and no machine could give hope, and the war was already lost, though the fighting still carried on, and the humans knew it, and pressed forward with patience unbroken. Alien voices, once loud with mockery, now broke into whispers of fear, And they said the humans are not blind, they see more than us, they hear more than us, they move where we cannot follow, and they whispered that the night belongs to them. And those whispers spread faster than any command and crushed what little hope remained. The commanders called for retreat, but retreat was chaos and retreat was slaughter, and the humans struck the fleeing soldiers as easily as they struck the proud ones before, and every path out was filled with silence and death, and the aliens realized they had no ground to hold, and no path to run, and no shield to hide behind, and the night itself had betrayed them. The humans did not chase recklessly, and they did not shout in triumph, for their victory was quiet and sharp, and they hunted until the last camp fell, and until the last patrol was gone, and until the black world carried only silence again, and in that silence the truth stood tall and unbroken that the turning point had come and the aliens had lost. The night was theirs no longer, and it had never been theirs, and now they knew it. And the lesson was carved into their hearts, and into their memories, and into their shame. The humans had turned weakness into power, and had turned mockery into fear, and had turned night into their kingdom, and nothing would erase it now. The alien survivors fled into the sky with broken voices and broken pride, and they carried with them the weight of shame heavier than armor, and sharper than any blade, and their ships rose into the dark clouds with engines burning bright. Yet no light could erase the memory of what had happened on the black world below. Inside the ships the commanders sat in silence with faces pale and eyes wide, and they whispered to each other that they had never known fear like this, and they asked how it was possible that humans who were mocked as weak had become hunters of the night, and none of them found answers because the truth was too heavy to admit aloud, and it lived in their silence like a ghost that never left. The soldiers huddled in corners of the ships, trembling and shaking, and they refused to meet the eyes of their leaders, for they no longer believed in them, and they no longer trusted their commands, and they no longer carried pride in their hearts. And when they spoke, it was only to whisper of shadows that moved faster than light, and of voices that came from nowhere, and of hunters who belonged to the night itself. The galaxy that once laughed at human eyes now listened to whispers spreading from ship to ship and from world to world, and the whispers said the night belongs to humans, and the darkness is their weapon, and the shadows are their home. And soon no world was free from the tale, and no commander dared to speak of human weakness again. On the black world the humans stood in silence among the ruins of camps and the emptiness of fields once filled with alien pride, and they did not cheer, and they did not shout, because victory was not loud, it was quiet and sharp and absolute. And they knew the galaxy would hear of it soon enough, and they knew the fear would spread faster than any victory cry ever could. The commanders of the human squads walked among their soldiers with quiet nods, and no words were needed, for every soldier understood what had been done, and every soldier carried the weight of history in their hearts. And they knew they had changed the way the galaxy would see them forever, and no mockery would rise again without trembling. The night that once was curse had become crown, and the humans wore it not with arrogance, but with silent power and with patient strength, and they knew that every shadow on every world would now remind their enemies of this victory, and every dark sky would now whisper of hunters who walked unseen and who struck without mercy. The aliens who survived tried to hide the truth at first, and they told their leaders that it was only chance and only trickery and only machines that humans carried. But soon the truth became too large to hide, because too many voices carried it, and too many soldiers returned broken, and too many commanders could not explain their defeat, and in the end the truth itself became a weapon sharper than steel. Worlds that once mocked humans now looked at them with caution and with fear, and they began to whisper, what else might humans do if they could claim the night? What else might they turn into power? What else might they change from weakness into strength? And these questions spread wider and faster than war, and soon the galaxy no longer laughed, it only waited and watched with silent dread. The humans did not boast, and they did not taunt, for they understood that silence was stronger than words and patience was sharper than pride, and they let the story spread on its own, and they let the fear grow without needing to feed it, and this silence made the tale even heavier and even darker and even more powerful in the minds of those who listened. The lesson was simple yet terrible, that humans had taken the insult and turned it into fire, and had taken the weakness and turned it into strength, and had taken the night, and turned it into kingdom, and no enemy could ever look at darkness the same way again, because darkness now carried the memory of hunters waiting and listening and breathing with patience older than stars. The alien commanders who had led the failed war were stripped of honor and stripped of command, and they sat in exile with eyes staring into shadows that never left them, and they muttered to themselves that they still saw movement in the corners, and they still heard whispers in silence, and they still felt the breath of hunters behind them, and none of them ever knew peace again. The humans returned to their worlds, and to their cities, and to their people, and they were greeted not with cheers of light, but with quiet respect, because all knew the truth of what they had done, and all knew the fear they had placed in the hearts of those who once mocked them, and the people carried this truth as a shield against the galaxy. The lesson written in blood and silence was remembered for generations, and it was taught not with pride, but with caution, for the humans knew that the galaxy would never stop watching and never stop fearing and never stop waiting for another chance. And so the humans kept training and kept sharpening their silence, and kept walking in the night, because they knew the next test would come. The story became legend, and the legend became warning, and the warning became truth, that no commander, no soldier, and no child in the galaxy could forget the night belongs to humans, and the darkness is their ally, and the hunters will never be blind again. And so the war ended not with a great battle, but with silence, and not with shining victory, but with fear carved into the hearts of enemies, and not with prideful shouts, but with whispers carried across the stars. And in those whispers lived the lesson learned forever, that humans were not weak and never have been weak, and that in the endless black where others faltered, humans would always rise.